Chris, Lee, and Joey Dwyer. Boy, it's late. Joey Dwyer of Fanny Sports here. Vanderbilt has beaten Kentucky to stay alive in the SEC tournament, and we'll move to the quarterfinals. We're running on fumes, but this is the night that you run on fumes. This was a memorable game. This is your first SEC tournament to cover. I've been to many. These are some of the memorable moments you catch. I remember the first one I ever covered. Vanderbilt pulled off a nice run in Atlanta. Took a big win over Mississippi State to kind of clinch a bid or seal one to the NCAA tournament that year. I remember being in this place 5-6 years ago when Vanderbilt beat Florida to kind of clinch one. I don't know that that's what happened tonight. We can talk about that later. It's going to be close, but this game was on par with some of the more memorable ones I've covered in the SEC tournament. How many times did we just look at each other during the night with our mouths open and just go, can you believe what we just saw? Vanderbilt just made one incredible play after another. Had little chunks of adversity go against it. Kentucky would make a run. Vanderbilt would make a play. I mean, and the two that stand out to me are the one where Ezra Mannion picked up a loose ball just in front of the midcourt line here in front of us. Shot clock's on maybe 4, dribbles up, cans a long 3. That much before the shot clock goes off. And Tyron Lawrence hits a baseline jumper on the other end with about 1:10 to play. That might have been the biggest shot of the night. It was just one of those evenings that I don't know that I'll ever remember the details 15, 20 years from now, but I will remember being here and just the wow of the game is, I guess, the best way I can put it.
Yeah, it felt like we were shocked all night, but I guess we shouldn't have been. This feels like kind of a microcosm of Vanderbilt's season. It's had its back against the wall the entire season. It's been in deficits, like when Kentucky went on that 12-0 run. Vanderbilt felt disjointed. It felt like Kentucky had its number, and it felt like maybe this game could get out of hand. Of course, Vanderbilt fights back, and behind tremendous guard play from Ezra Mannion, Tyron Lawrence, Jordan Wright, finds a way to get back in this game. Paul Lewis also gave him great minutes. Just feels like exactly what this Vanderbilt team needed, and feels like a microcosm of what they are. This team has about as much of an it factor as I've seen from a college basketball team. It feels like there's not a true way to describe this team with giving it enough credit for the last 11 games. And it feels like there's some ways you can overreact, but it's really hard to overreact to this team and the way they're playing right now.
Yeah. You know, you said the 12-0 run, and I had to stop and think about it. Like, that didn't happen, did it? And I thought, oh, wait a minute. They're down 14-4 to start the game. And I think at that point, we're just looking at each other. We're going, they're going to get blown out. Kentucky was too big, was pounding the ball inside. Vanderbilt just could not get defensive stops. And you know, some nights the shots fall and some nights they don't. This was one the shots started to fall after that. And it wasn't just falling down 14-4 like that. It was this building was erupting. I mean, it was loud in here, Joey. People didn't see it. Kentucky is want to do in these spots. It's fan base overrated tonight. And so much going against them, I'm just thinking they don't have the physical ability to play with Kentucky. And they couldn't get a rebound for anything. We look up and then you've got 4 guards and Colin Smith playing the post. And you said to me, I guess that's what you do if you're not going to rebound anyway, just put guards on the floor. That's what they did, and it worked.
Yeah, this was just unbelievable in every sense of the word, but it shouldn't have been. This is what Vanderbilt's done all season. Through adversity, through being counted out. Jerry Stackhouse stood over there to the SEC now, guys. You've been picking against me all season, so why should you give me credit now? And I guess that's kind of the motto of this team, is just when their back's against the wall, they play their best basketball, and they've done it all season long. Yeah. And it's just shown throughout this week, and now feels like Vanderbilt's tournament hopes are as alive as they've been all season, and tonight could have been a night that ended their season. Last night could have been a night that ended their season. But Vanderbilt has found a way to win, even without Liam Robbins, without his best shooting performance last night. Tonight finds another way while getting absolutely pounded on the glass, maybe not getting the calls. I'll let Liam Robbins explain that one for me if you ask about it. But
or not.
But just a tremendous, tremendous night for Vanderbilt, and it felt like one in which the magic wasn't contained in Memorial Gymnasium. It was here in Bridgestone Arena in front of all the Kentucky fans. Ezra Magnon had probably the best performance of his Vanderbilt career. Tyron Lawrence hit shots that we were like, how did he make that shot over and over again? Jordan Wright gave him some good minutes. Paul Lewis was aggressive and as composed as ever against some of the Kentucky physicality and length that he saw. Just another tremendous night for Vanderbilt when all the odds were stacked against it. When it had as much to lose as it had to gain, Vanderbilt found a way to win again, and it feels like that every single time.
I watch them and I just go, how do they do this at times? But when you're up close, and this is as close as we've been all season, our seats in the press box are in the rafters.
Bird's eye.
Yeah, well, when you get close, I think one thing you realize is how tough Tyron Lawrence and Ezra Magnon are to contain off the dribble. Jordan Wright's just got sort of a do-it-all game. I mean, their three guards right now are playing about as well as anybody's in the country. They all bring different things. They open up the floor to get good looks. Paul Lewis was great tonight, I thought, in his limited minutes. And it just seems like their backcourt is playing well enough to carry them against almost anybody right now, even though they've got some major deficiencies elsewhere. Those guys have been that good.
Yeah, and I wrote about that last night. It's like if you have a qualm with next year's team, looking more and more like it can't be the backcourt. You have Ezra Magnon playing the best basketball of his career. He looked every bit of an all-SEC guard tonight. Tyron Lawrence, we already mentioned. Yeah. Paul Lewis has looked composed. He's looked aggressive at the same time. That's special for a freshman. You have Noah Shelby, who can be a valuable shooter next year. And not to mention Isaiah West, who won a state championship last week and looks like one of the better guard recruits Vanderbilt has gotten. Next year, you feel really good about how that backcourt looks. It's just the front court that maybe you have some questions about, but man, did that backcourt carry him tonight? It feels like Vanderbilt has a big three now with Tyron Lawrence, Jordan Wright, and Ezra Magnon. If it can get anything else out of anybody, which it did tonight with Paul Lewis, last night it was Colin Smith and Paul Lewis, Vanderbilt's in a pretty good spot despite some of the matchup deficiencies it has, despite maybe not getting stops at times. Vanderbilt's three veteran guards are going to carry it, and I don't know if that's something we would have been comfortable saying a few months ago.
No, and give Jerry Stackhouse credit. He's gotten a ton out of those guys. He's developed them. It started to fit. They're cohesive, which leads us to the next thing. And we could talk a lot about next year, but I think we need to table that because there's a lot this year to talk about. And that includes which tournament they're going to play in. As we sit here, you've seen how much bracket math and stuff. I mean, it's crazy how much you've seen the research I've done. I haven't left many stones unturned, and I really want to see what all the computers say in the morning when they're done, and also want to see what happens in the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Because as we sit here tonight, there's a couple of big games that are unsettled that could impact them. There's also some potential bubble steals that could happen. So, like, you can't say they are in or out at this point with any certainty. Anybody that's saying that, I'm just going to say that's foolish because there's too much unsettled. But if I were to make my guess, and maybe I'm being a little bit generous, but I have to think that good as you've got the numbers, you've got the data, you've got all those things, you've got the big wins. If the eye test matters at all, and I hate that phrase because you can use that to put in a lot of teams that probably don't deserve to be in, and use that to justify a lot. I'm big on, But here's the point I'm making. I think that their resume is good enough to justify inclusion at this point. Whether the committee does that or says, well, Wisconsin's was a lot like yours, or Oklahoma State's was a lot like yours, and we gave the nod to those teams instead. That could happen. Bids could be stolen. It might not matter. But if you have watched them play the last few weeks and you watch them play here tonight, it looks like a team that could get there and who knows, maybe win a game or two. And to the extent that matters to the committee, and to the extent that you've got to consider, I think, as much as I'm a body of work guy, because I think you can't just say the first 2.5 months of the season doesn't matter. It's a different era. You got transfer portals, you got teams take longer to gel. If that's a factor, that's got to play in their favor right now.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me to take away from tonight is hope is alive.
Yeah.
Because hope very well could have been gone after tonight. Vanderbilt finds a way to keep it alive, and I think we would both agree that this is the most in the mix they've been all season long. Joe Lenardi put him in the first 4 out, and take what you will out of Joe Lenardi's picks. I know he's got a lot of criticism from Vandy Twitter and the message board, but he generally has a good pulse of kind of what's going on. And now that Vanderbilt's in the mix, they have another quad one opportunity tomorrow, and they have hope, most importantly.
Yeah.
To me, if Vanderbilt makes the tournament tonight, will be looked back upon as probably the biggest win of Jerry Stackhouse's Vanderbilt tenure. I've said that about 2 other games this year, and Stackhouse just keeps topping it, Chris.
Yeah. Well, they have hope. The question is, will they have legs? I've seen Vandy teams in this spot before when you have to play a couple games. Sometimes it's that second half of the 3rd game where the legs start to go and the jump shots start to fall short. A&M's going to be fresher. A&M's also got another thing. A&M is a veteran team. A lot of guys have played a lot of ball. A&M was pretty much as hot as Vanderbilt's been in the last 6 weeks, really since the last week of December. So I think my question is, you know, even at full strength, is Vandy good enough to beat them? I mean, it almost was in College Station, but even if it's good enough, will the legs be there anymore? That's the thing I'll watch for in the second half.
I don't bet against this team anymore, Chris.
I know. It seems like we should have learned our lesson, but I mean, it has really been, we can joke about it. It has been such an improbable run, though, and it's been one of the more memorable things that I've covered, and I think most people know I've done this 20 years now. There's a lot of things I've seen. I've seen national titles in baseball, but I think this run that I've seen the last 6 weeks will be something that, however this ends, whether that's an NCAA bid or an NIT bid, I think this will be something that I still remember 10 years from now.
I would say about a month ago, I got on a podcast with you. It was gloomy out. Vanderbilt had just lost by 57 points. Yeah. We were talking about Jerry Stackhouse's buyout. We were talking about all those doom and gloom things. Now on the message board tonight, I see, does UNC want to hire Jerry Stackhouse? That's kind of a microcosm of how this thing has turned, and it's because of the belief this team has in each other. Ezra Magnon, I think every time we talk to him, talks about how much this team loves each other, how much they believe in each other. And even with Liam Robbins out of the lineup, I think he's a microcosm of that. I'm using that word a lot tonight. I'm tired, Chris.
Yeah.
He's been right behind that bench, and he's probably been the loudest one on that bench.
Yeah.
And I talked to him tonight. I asked him, what will you remember about your Vanderbilt career the most? And he said, I'll get back to you in a few days. It's not over. I'm still part of this team. Yeah. And I think that just kind of shows the belief this team has in each other and how tightly knit they are. When they lost to Grambling State, they still believe that they could do this. And that is a really hard thing to believe in mid-December after you've lost to Grambling State. It just feels like this team has always been joined at the hip, now feels they're just one. They have the it factor, they're resilient, they're gutsy. There's not enough good things to say about this team right now, Chris.
Yeah. Well, you'll be here to say something tomorrow, I guess, one way or the other. I will not. I had a pre-planned family event across the country, so I will be hitting a flight about 6 hours from now. Maybe with sleep, maybe without sleep. But I will be watching from TV because at this point they're getting this TV.
They are right in the mix, Chris. I don't know the metrics as well as you do. I'm still waiting on some results as well as you are. Vanderbilt is right in the mix. I don't know if they're in. I don't know if they're in right now, but 3 months ago, I don't think we could have even imagined this. I don't think we could have fathomed this. Vanderbilt is right there. If they win tomorrow, really hard to keep them out of the tournament despite the metrics.
And I can't stress how I think unclear it is. Really, there's a pack of maybe 10 teams. The last, I don't know, 3 or 4 in, but the first 4 or 5 out. That you can look at them, and if you want to say, well, this is what I value, I'll put this team ahead of that team, and it really is going to be in the eyes of the committee. Because I think right now as we sit here at what, almost midnight, it is midnight. You can defend them getting in, but you can also, if you want to argue for a team in the vicinity, you can also argue, well, they did this where they didn't. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the committee sorts it out and how much the committee factors in what we're seeing here. Because last year, and you can ask A&M, and maybe it was a different situation, but those things didn't always matter. And I think that's your fear if you're Vanderbilt, is how much does this matter, or has the committee made up its mind on a lot of things where this doesn't really move the needle? And you just don't know until you see what comes out on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the big thing to take away from this is there's hope. Vanderbilt's it's gonna matter on Selection Sunday.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt hasn't been in that position in years. I personally think that Vanderbilt, maybe the first 2 or 3 teams out,
Yeah.
maybe the last 2 or 3 teams in, they are right there.
Yeah.
They are the definition of a bubble team right now. And I always thought that maybe you'd have to win more than this game, but this game gets you in the mix with some help, and maybe gets you in the tournament with some help. So, Vandy fans, stay up late. We got a few big ones to watch tonight, and I don't know if Chris will be watching because he's got to get up so early, but I'll try. I can't guarantee it, but the big thing tonight, this was a special night,
Yeah.
and it said so much about this team, just the way it competed, the way it rallied around each other. In the first couple minutes, it felt like they were overwhelmed. It felt like they were out of sync, out of rhythm, completely overwhelmed. 5 minutes later, Vanderbilt's leading this game.
Yeah.
And that says, I don't even know how much more to say about that. It's just such an unbelievable testament to how Jerry Stackhouse has built his culture and how this team believes in each other.
Congratulations to Jerry Stackhouse and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has beaten Kentucky 80-73. This is now Saturday morning. Vanderbilt's got a game here in 14 hours, and you'll be here for it. And Joey will probably have video afterwards.
Absolutely. Hopefully for Vanderbilt, we'll see the Jerry chants in a few more hours.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. He's Joey Dwyer. I'm Chris Lee with Vandy Sports. We'll see you again soon.